host, Keyanna Alexander, and we are continuing our conversations with some of the artists that made Occupy the Stage 2022 possible. I am very excited to have these two artists on screen with us right now, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Hi there, my name is Rachel Leighson. Pronouns are she, hers, and my script is called Little Egg, Big World.
Hi, I'm Sara Guerrero, and my pronouns are she, her. And my script is Have to Believe We Are Magic.
I am so excited to be talking to the both of you about your work and about your process as writers. But first, how did you get started in this whole theater thing? Rachel, let's start with you.
I got started as a very shy child who really just wanted to be with her friends after school, and her friends were going to an after school drama program. I was terrified of drama, but I just wanted to be where they were. And I ended up really loving it and ended up understudying because I didn't want to do it. And then that kid got chicken pox and I had to go on, the big leagues in our little production of The Wizard of Oz. And it just really changed my life. And I really give it credit for making me the person I am and helping me with a lot of social anxiety and creating a lot of different worlds that I could delve into, both originally as a writer and now as an actor and a writer.
I do have to ask the question, what role were you in The Wizard of Oz?
I was the Tin Man.
So good!
There's really amazing video archival footage of that show, of like saying a line and then looking to the audience like, I did it!
I adore that so much. I also feel like there are so few great roles where you get to like do the actual dance move, the robot, and it not be weird.
It's true. It's true.
Those
Being
roles
made
are
of
so
metal,
rare.
like you really do get to take advantage of that. Especially
Absolutely.
as a kid who you're just like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And you don't have to know what you're doing with your hands in that case. That's the dream scenario.
It's a perfect first role. And Sara, how about you? How did you get started in theater?
Well, I was definitely an extrovert. My mom knew instantly that, like, put this one in dance and tap and everything. I mean, I probably did a lot of solo performances when I shouldn't have been doing it. I mean, I loved storytelling. I really, really did. And I loved writing stories. And when I was a fifth grader, my fifth grade teacher like encouraged me to write my first play. And I was to cast all like 25 fellow students in this play. It was about Thanksgiving. Now, because I was influenced by my Chicana tias about their perspective of the pilgrims and the indigenous communities, so mine was really about how awful the pilgrims were. The principal didn't want to produce it, but my teacher, being an amazing teacher, produced it, and I directed it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know that this could be done, but it was like, it was awesome. It was amazing. It also just kind of really helped me continue in the things that I was interested in middle school and high school. And I think our gateway is acting. And then as you do the work, you find yourself in other parts of the theater world. Like I'm now a stage director, a founding artistic director for Breath of Fire Latina Theater Ensemble. But I mean, I think writing has always been at the core. Like as an actor, it was my outlet to find my voice when I felt like I couldn't find who I was. When you're young and you're trying to figure out like, who am I? And you're supposed to know, like, oh my God, what? But so that's kind of my story. Yeah.
I relate so heavy to that idea of, oh, I was the child who was already making up stories. So my parents were like, let's try to utilize this in a productive way. Because there are absolutely home footage of me somewhere in this world of giving my presidential campaign speeches. I had my own running mate. I like made a whole campaign, and like, nope, nope. Did I run in 2016? I did not. But 5-year-old me was ready. Like, I did the math, I counted out, and I was like, oh, I'll be old enough in 2016 to run for president. And that, so if whether your children are that one that need help getting socialized and need help finding their voices on stage, or if they got big of enough voice already and you're just trying to find a way to use it, theater is perfect for kids of all types. And that's the spectrum of artists that makes this work, because we're not all the same. That was a very long-winded way of saying 3 cheers to having the spectrum here on the screen with us tonight. Now, I'm going to ask you guys about your scripts specifically. So, Sara, we'll start with you this time. Tell us, what is your story about and why is it important to you?
Well, thank you for asking. Well, this play or this story is much older than my teenage son, who became a teenager during the pandemic. And I, as a director, as a producer, artistic director, and the work that I do, don't necessarily have a whole lot of time for writing. And the work that I've done is really rooted in historical events, commissions for, telling a very specific story, specifically a Latinx lens, for a community, with the community in mind. And so to be able to do a story or write something of something that was just really for me was really exciting. And it really, because it came out during the pandemic, all my contracts or all the work that I was scheduled to go and direct, it wasn't happening. And so I utilized the existing incubating program through Breath of Fire, the organization that I'm a part of. And I just became a student in the process. And so my play is about coming of age in the 90s, living in Orange County, California, under the shadow of the Magic Kingdom, or as we like to call it, the Tragic Kingdom. And really about being in that weird purgatory age. Like, you're out of high school, you should probably be in college, or maybe you're not sure. You're 19, 20, you're old enough to vote, but you're not old enough to drink, And so what were the things that we did as kids growing up here? There wasn't a whole lot for us to do. It was more about trying not to get in trouble or get caught when it comes down to it. And of course, you're, who you trying to figure out who you are, being an adult, having sex, drinking, being with friends. And there's this, this sort of figuring out what you want, but sometimes not understanding that you are to drive your bus, but you're really going through the actions. And then when something happens to you, you realize, shit, I got to do something about this. And this is partly biographical and partly magic and in between. And although the topic is abortion, one of the topics and themes is abortion, it's not solely about it, but access and what kind of access that does for somebody. And so one of the, being in the pandemic, I had more time to listen to NPR. And there was a research project that the person who led it was being interviewed. And it was called the Turnaway Study. And it basically captured 10 years of women or families who had access to abortions and those who did not, and how that impacted them in 10 years. And it was validating. At 19, I found myself pregnant. And I knew that if I was to have this baby, I would not survive it. This baby would be a tragic statistic, and so would I. And so I knew exactly what I wanted, and I never had regrets. And I have yet to find a story about a woman who wants, makes this decision and really wants to see it through. Obviously, there are obstacles in this story about her trying to get access and see this through. And really, it's a financial barrier, and then also certain laws, the way they are set up, if you do not do it within a certain window, it is against the law. In living in Southern California, obviously my experience was a little different as to somebody who may currently be living in Texas, right? But when hearing this interview, it was validating. Like, women who did have access ended up having children later in life and were more in a financial, more emotional, stable place in their lives to have children. And it was interesting because there was a lot of families in the study that weren't just teenagers. They were like spouses, and they were like, okay, we have 4 children, we cannot have a fifth, we cannot even have a second, or so it was just it was a very like a spectrum of women who had access and did not. And then it really also let us look at what happened when you didn't, and how much they were set up for failure, and how financially they were. I mean, it was tragic. It was so tragic. And for me, it was, I felt really compelled, and finally had a moment, inspired, and I was able to really finally realize this full length play. Now it's gone through some processes, right? Because no draft is ever done. But that's kind of in a nutshell.
Wow, there is so much to unpack. There are so many juicy tidbits that you have shared with us. But before we dive into that, hello, friend. What is your show about?
Hello. So one, I just want to say, Sarah, I'm from Los Angeles. So I love that we do call it the Tragic Kingdom. So that was fun for me. And actually, in kind of keeping in the themes of coming of age and reproductive justice. So my play, Little Egg, Big World, is a semi-autobiographical, but also not really, tale of being a donor-conceived child and then growing up to be an egg donor. And the familial relationships and the identity relationships that this character goes through, both in an understanding of what does it mean to look at where we come from, how do we define family, and then growing up to make decisions that we might make out of financial reasons, but knowing where we've come from, what impact do those decisions have? Do those future decisions, the decision to donate, does that do any healing? What potential problems does that create for the future? And this is actually the second attempt at writing a play about this, which I think was necessary. I wrote my first one a few years ago, and it was not good. It wasn't bad, but I feel like you have those moments where you're too close to the material and you're like, I need to write about this for my soul. And it meant a lot to me to go through that process, but the play itself was not accessible to other people. And so really having the chance to take the pandemic and look at, okay, what is personal to me, but what is the message that I actually want to give people? What is the vehicle that I want to use to say, this is what this character is dealing with. This is what this character is dealing with and how it relates to society. And really putting that all into a package that could be accessed and that could be used as a launching point for discussion. And that was a personal story, but that was a story that people could also relate to. Because I think one of the things that I was running into, and that I talked a lot with my friends, and I think a lot of writers probably run into when they're trying to tell a personal story, is you want to tell it, and that's why you're inspired to write it. But there is a part of you that's like, but it's mine. I don't want anyone to hurt it. I don't want anyone to say, oh, well, this is unrealistic, or, oh, why did the character make that choice? That was a bad choice. I'm like, well, that's my choice. How could you possibly say that? So I've really valued this time to look at what are my choices versus what are the characters' choices and how that relates to the actors. I'm actually just coming from a rehearsal, and I'm really excited to say that that's making progress and happening. Yes.
I kind of love how both of your stories are involving reproduction rights and involving like what is family, right? Like when you choose when to have a family, when you choose what that family looks like conceptually. And then you're both kind of approaching it from two very different angles, but meeting in this beautiful, like, all women should have all choices all the time sort of conclusion. I just adore that we can still have that middle ground even when both of you are approaching this subject in two very different sorts of story. I don't want to say genres, but your stories aren't the same, and yet what kind of derives from them is the same philosophy or the same statement. Sorry if I overstepped there, but like I just thought that was super super cool. Okay, sorry. So that was my own soapbox, but I do find something also really interesting that I would love for us to kind of touch on really quick is this idea that both of you have such strong connections to the things happening in the play, because they are, even if it's not your story, you have had events related to what you're writing about. So like how much of yourself are you comfortable putting in your works, and how does that influence what's on the page?
That's a great question. I think because of I'm time has definitely passed. And I think what Rachel was talking about, when things are too close to you, that sometimes you need time and space to really like look at this thing that you're trying to write about. Right. For me, there's definitely things about it that I really wanted to be there. Like roller skating. Like I loved roller skating as a kid. I loved Xanadu. So it's in there. I mean, have to believe we are magic, right? I'm in the magic kingdom. But there's definitely things that are very much about my childhood in the environment. And that was really fun. That was the fun part. And then just really allowing, although there are traces of me being able to let go and let these characters like fly off the handle and go. That was the best part of this. Like I could not direct. I could not be with my theater kin, so I had to create this world. I was really playing pretend. I was really listening. I was channeling these voices. We were listening to music. We were roller skating. We were rainbows were just appearing everywhere, glitter, I saw acid tripping, and just it was really fun to just be, I don't think I've had that much time as an adult. Not that I always had time, but like it was just a really lovely time that I didn't have to worry about those things. I think when it came to working with other dramaturgs and directors and different processes, then it was like, oh, you don't, and it wasn't so much about me in there. It was just about like, you don't get why why I put that there. But then just really thinking back, like, oh, is that working? Like I felt like I was removed enough, but there were things about my childhood, about Orange County, that I really wanted to see in this through a Latina lens, because I don't see that specific experience of that time ever staged. And without it being about tropes or stereotypes, so it was kind of just a fun way to take something that was me, but I could let go. Hope I didn't go too long on that response.
Oh no, chef's kiss. Don't even worry about it. Rachel, how about you? How does you showing up in your own work feel for you?
Yeah, I love that you talked about creating experiences, because I really feel that was the difference. And I love, it's a very 90s play. There's so much 90s reference. And I feel like that is the fun part of getting to write something that and it becomes less about putting me as like how I define myself in these formative experiences, and more about putting these little environmental touches in that really create whole people. as opposed to trying to create a world to tell a story and focusing so much on those minutiae. Because I feel like once you create that environment and once you know exactly where you are and who you're talking to, the characters do the work for you. They know exactly what they want to say and how they're going to say it. And it's really just up to you to guide them and make sure that they don't go too far off the rails or that they mention everything that they need to mention. But the fun part was really just getting to be like, oh, of course I had those opinions when I was that age, because this was what was going on in the world. And this was where I was being affected from and where I was coming from. And oh, that is a really funny thing that happened to me that I wouldn't have found funny at the time. But it is really funny to put it in there now and look at it from that lens. So it's really been a very healing, fun process.
I see Sara was having some very strong reactions while you were talking.
I echo everything you just said, Rachel. Like, and even just the healing, like, not that I thought I was like really, like, I think I've had enough time, but I was like, man, that felt so wonderful. It felt like I gave my childhood self kind of like a big hug, and like, hey, I got your back.
Oh, I am absolutely in love with this concept of like letting your inner child or your younger self kind of guide the story for you, and then letting that wherever they lead you to, that's the path that you follow. And that could be a different opinion than what you have currently, because I won't speak for anybody else, but past Keyanna had some opinions that were problematic. All right? One, why were we wearing red pants? Stop it. Just had some problematic opinions. But I do want to kind of bring us to our final question for this afternoon, night, evening. Time doesn't matter anymore. What are you looking forward to most for Occupy the Stage? Be that something in your show specifically or something regarding the entire festival?
I think so. I was lucky enough in 2020 to participate in Occupy as an actor. And I'm actually very excited for a similar thing that I got to experience then. And I want to experience it more now, which is just that this is one of the few festivals where you do get to work with people nationally and sometimes internationally. And I'm really excited to see what different people bring to the process. I'm definitely enjoying that in my own work because I very much am in the New York City theater bubble, and people act a certain way and come to their work a certain way, and it's very interesting to see the different layers that people bring coming from different practices or different spaces or different histories. And I'm really just excited to see that, and I'm excited to see all the different perspectives of the plays because they really cultivated a lot of radically different opinionated plays this round. So I'm super excited to see what they all have to say.
I'm going to echo what Rachel was talking about. Like I got to do, I was acting in one, and it was really exciting to get to know the people behind the scenes, get to know more about the festival, and then eventually being on a panel about the work that, in continuous conversations. And then because of the pandemic, it's been really, this has been a way that I've really enjoyed getting to know other artists from across the coast, or even just like in Los Angeles, and you never have to leave your house, which is a good thing and a sad thing at the same time. But I think being able to see the work and recognize like the amount of names, just the bodies that are making this happen, and you get to be a part of it. That is exciting. And then, I'm looking forward to seeing Rachel's play because I'm like, oh, nice, like it's so great to kind of get to, because we're in our little rooms, and then the director that I'm working with she's phenomenal, and the cast and giving my script another life is also just so exciting. It's such an honor, because you never know. You put this work out, you write it, you submit it. Does it ever, you don't know where it goes. And then just knowing like how many women, and not just women, but people who are, that either identify or either non-binary, who are making this happen. Like what's really, really lovely is just this energy and how it gets translated through the leadership. I freaking love it. I'm off the rails about it. But again, like, and just like, like I'm like trying to figure out, because I'm in a rehearsal process too. So I'm like, okay, so when can I see that? Okay, I can see this here, and I can see this here, I can see this here, So that is, I miss that. I miss going to the New Place festivals and, having the cocktails or crossing paths and saying hi. And what's exciting is the hope is we eventually start to move in person. We're still kind of some dark waters right now, but like these relationships and to see the festival grow in the capacity that it has, it's just like, it feels like we are able to be more together in such a meaningful and like kick-ass way.
I love both of your answers to this, because I think it embodies like the National Women's Theater Festival so much. Of like, yes, we have absolute amateurs, never stepped foot on a stage sort of artists here, and then we also have absolute like old heads here that like, I've been doing this for 45 years. Like everyone has a different perspective, a different means of approaching the work, and that's the cool part. That's the interesting part of like, even though all of the spectrum of abilities, spectrum of experience, and how we want to do the thing, we all still have like this centering belief that like, who makes really great art? Marginalized people, because we have a voice that needs to be uplifted and amplified. Who makes awesome art? People who have to like fight for their art to be respected, because they feel like if it doesn't come with fire, then I won't get respect, which is not true, by the way. Like, if you are a marginalized person, you have space to be mediocre. You do. Don't feel like you have to be excellent all the time. But also, y'all are just really great storytellers. So shout out to y'all. And with that very strange soapbox that I didn't know I was going to get on this evening, Little Egg, Big World, and there's no we at the beginning of it, and Have to Believe We Are Magic are two wonderful shows that I am so excited to watch in this reading. Thank you both so much for being here and sharing a little bit about your experiences as playwrights and as human beings. Thank you, viewers, for sticking around with us to watch all of these lovely readings and interviews. And I don't know what else we're programming quite yet, but you're here, we're here, it's a good time. And stick around, keep watching. We have so much coming tonight, this weekend. I don't know where this interview is going to be placed, so I'll probably have to cut this part out. Okay, thanks audience, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.